Dishonored, 88%. Batman Arkham City, 94%. Mass Effect 2, 96%. What do these games have in common? It's not just great Metacritic scores. They're all legendary single-player games made by some of the best developers of their generation. Want to know what else they have in common? Redfall, 56%. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, 60%. Anthem, 59%. All the most recent games from their respective developers, all critical and commercial flops, and all live service games. So what happened? How could respected names like Arcane Austin, Rocksteady, and BioWare release games this reviled? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and in a word, it's live services. Instead of focusing on the single-player games they were so good at, these developers were led astray by the promise of guaranteed profit. But as we figured out in 2024, there are no guarantees in the games industry. Right now, it seems like all a developer can do is stick to what they're good at and hope for the best, but these guys didn't do that. Instead, they decided to follow a dangerous trend that's killing single-player games, and they're paying for it. And don't get us wrong, at gameranx we are definitely frustrated and pissed off at the current state of the industry. But it's not like we celebrate gleefully once a once great studio's reputation ends up in the dumps. It sucks. I loved BioWare. And it feels like there has been a pretty fair amount of these types of videos where we're talking about what's wrong with the game. And yeah, it's easy rage bait, but I don't take joy in tearing stuff down. We don't take joy wallowing in the filth. Yes, it's sometimes funny to point and laugh, but we are losing great game creators, and I just wish it didn't have to be that way. There's a specter haunting the games industry, a specter called the live service. It's infected the minds of every corporate suit and bean counter, and can you really blame them? They've seen runaway success with games like Fortnite, which is still absurdly popular and makes money hand over fist, and the guys at the top of these publishing companies, they all want a slice of that pie. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. They see the other guy's number go up, so they want their number to go up. The problem is, all these guys assumed that the pie was infinite, that you'd be able to cut off as many slices as you wanted forever, and it wasn't. There are 8 slices of the industry profits pie. Fortnite, GTA Online, Genshin Impact, and Fortnite is another one. Also Fortnite 2 also. I'm going to mention Fortnite one more time to even that out to six pieces of the pie. Everybody else trying to get those 2 pieces. Let's just call them the scraps for now. All these guys didn't account for how that was going to shake out, though. They just saw the big hay bales of money going to Epic and Rockstar and Blizzard, and they were like, I like money. Hey, people who are doing something that works, stop and try to do what those guys are doing, even though you don't know how to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose of a business is to generate a profit, after all, especially if you're a publicly traded company, and a lot of these companies are. The dirty little secret of the games industry is that success is never guaranteed, though, and there's no simple formula for making a profit. There's just too many random factors that come into play, whether a game is successful or not. But screw that. I'll set all the corporate executives who clearly don't understand, let alone love video games. In their minds, the real secret to success is to find somebody who's successful and follow them around, which on an individual basis, like, it's good to learn from people, but when you're a business person, you're just ripping somebody else off, it doesn't quite work the same. It doesn't necessarily drop you gently into success land. And that's just what a lot of companies did, or tried to do. EA, Warner Brothers, Activision, Bethesda, Square Enix, they might not have mandated it, but they all wanted their game developer studios to, build some money printing presses. Oh, sorry, I mean games with endless multiplayer elements and lots of microtransactions, which I can't imagine that ever getting old. The important thing to keep in mind is that the games industry wasn't immediately reacting to Fortnite's success. Almost all of these flops were in development well before Fortnite became the biggest thing in town. Live service was a direction the industry was already going in. Everybody wanted that big hit, and when games like Fortnite and GTA Online started dominating the space and publishers started posting record profits, that really accelerated people's plans. To anyone in the know, it sounds insane for a company like Arcane Austin, most famous for their work on Prey, still underrated to this day, to do that. Like Bethesda going, hey, Arcane Austin, we own you, and what we want from you is live service games, when you clearly make immersive sims and do it in a highly specific way that is both critically and commercially well received. And then Microsoft buys them, and Redfall just tanks hard because it's Redfall. And that's the first thing that Microsoft observes. I mean, this is a studio that really knew single-player games. People got jobs at Arcane Austin because they liked that kind of game, because Arcane Austin was famous for it. So everybody at Arcane Austin was really enthusiastic about that kind of game. And yet, in 2018, the same year Fortnite was really taking off, Arcane started work on Redfall, an online-only open-world cooperative shooter. It's easy to just point at ZeniMax or Bethesda and say they forced Arcane into making a bad game. And for the most part, I am going to say that that is most of the problem, particularly with this one. That being said, devs are perfectly capable of making bad decisions on their own. The orders don't always come from the top. When ZeniMax wanted more microtransactions, Doom Eternal did it by shuffling all that stuff off to the multiplayer mode. The game still had a robust single-player component, though. And really, regardless of whose fault it is, Arcane making Redfall proved to be a terrible idea. Right from the start, the project lacked direction and enthusiasm for pretty much everybody involved, and according to reports, no one at Arcane wanted to make it. And you can just see that in the buggy, half-baked final product. Sources said the whole project was such a boondoggle that many in the company secretly hoped Microsoft would simply cancel the game after the acquisition. And as much as people used to praise Microsoft's hands-on approach with their studios, they probably should have canceled that game. I think it probably would have been better for everybody, because they would have stopped sinking money into it and Arcane Austin would still exist. I mean, not that it really matters anyway, because it's estimated that around 70% of the staff that worked on Prey left the studio by the time Redfall actually shipped. The project was so disheartening to the people who wanted to be at Arcane that they just quit rather than deal with it. Like, they're obviously talented people. It'll be harder for them to bounce back somewhere else, but it's not like they're no-talent hacks. They will be able to find work. So why not leave? If you're going to be stuck working on something that just kills your will to wake up every day, why stay there? And, you know, because of this, Arcane Austin also struggled to fill empty positions, because I don't know how you get people who are like really excited about working in live service games at Arcane Austin, the developer famous for immersive sims. Like, if you say to me, there's a position open at Arcane Austin, I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, they're making a live service game. Oh, well, I'm not going to apply for that. That's how my brain would work if I were them. And live service games are the problem, but they're not the full problem. It's possible for a live service game to be good. Helldivers 2 shows us that in spades. The problem here is forcing single-player devs who are not interested or straight up don't know how to make live service games. That's the problem. That's the biggest, most glaring problem, I think, even more so than the idea that a live service game exists. No type of game is automatically good or bad, but it is automatically bad to try to get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't want to do something to try to do the thing, because that thing is going to suck. Like, you'd run into this issue with genre changes anyway. Like, imagine taking the Battlefield team at DICE and saying, hey, make Baldur's Gate 4, please. It would probably be a disaster because, these are multiplayer shooter guys, not systematic RPG guys. The drive and the knowledge just isn't there. And let's even say that they're excited about it. That could be a project that easily beats them down because they got to learn everything over again. And what we've come to learn in the past few years is that making live service games is hard. Even developers who have successfully done it, like Bungie, they struggle to remain profitable. Destiny 2 is a game characterized by crisis. It's a game that always seems like it's on the verge of completely breaking down. There are times when things are great, like with the Witch Queen, and then there's times when things are terrible and no one is happy with Destiny 2, like with Lightfall. In general, Destiny 2's been a success, but you'd never know it from the community at times. The problem with live service games is they require a constant stream of updates to stay afloat, and that means they need a constant stream of labor, and that means you're never done with them, ever. And it's a delicate balance. You have to be satisfying, but not quite satisfying enough to be done. Like, I will go ahead and say this. That's not automatically bad. Generally, it turns out bad, but I'll again point to Helldivers 2. They get it right. It's worth continuing to play it on an ongoing basis because it is just satisfying enough to not be satisfying, but be satisfying. I know that sounds ridiculous, but still, that is an extremely difficult balancing act. a dance with many delicate steps, one in which a single mistake could send the dancer flying, landing right on their face. And that allegory took the extent of my dancing knowledge. You're welcome. Like, take Anthem. It's another example of a game where BioWare just didn't understand how to make a live service game. Flat out. It was a loot game where nobody was allowed to mention Destiny 2 during development. BioWare was so desperate to avoid comparisons to other games, but instead of doing something unique, it just meant that the game fell into the same pitfalls that other developers had run into and learned to avoid years ago. Basic game design decision problems pop up because, quote, old-style AAA multiplayer game sensibilities tend to fly in the face of the realities of live service games. Anthem, The Avengers, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, all of these games are built like single-player games with a level of fidelity, which is fine for a single campaign with a beginning, middle, and end, but it's kind of a problem when the developers are expected to continue the story forever. Either these games end up feeling hollow and incomplete from the start, with developers cutting content from the main game and slowly sprinkling it out in content updates, or the live service aspect just barely exists, with the game going months on end without updates. Either direction can kill a community. And another thing that a lot of these developers failed to take into account was the community aspect. For a live service game to thrive, it needs an active and engaged community. According to whoever you talk to, whales are responsible for 60 to 70% of the revenue in every game. But without the community, without the people there, the whales have nothing to do. It's something that executives just flat out don't understand. They think, oh, well, it's like just cater to the whales. Give them exactly what they want and screw everyone else. It leads to decisions that can be very political or pandery, and a game never builds a community because no one wants anything to do with it except for a very specific type of person who might be willing to give money based on the appeasement of their sensibilities. That's a highly specific example of the community problem that these developers have, but it goes out to be much more broad. Think about the other pie, the player, their time and their money. Finding a player who loves a game long enough to play it endlessly is one thing. Convincing them to play a few at once, that's tough. We all have obligations in life. Jobs, school, family, hygiene, physical and mental health. Cheeses from various countries. There's a lot of different cheeses. I've probably had 9 of them. There is a lot to experience in life, and some of it you have to do, some of it is optional, but it all takes time. You can't exactly mainline Destiny or World of Warcraft and Warframe and Fortnite and play Diablo's new season and be a productive member of society all at once. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm sure some of you are going to say that you can, but you can't. You can't. Don't try to do that. It will probably kill you. Like, we talk about crunch in game development, but what about on the consumer end? They're asking us to do crunch, except for they want us to pay them. The reality of life is that adding another live service to your plate is a tough sell, especially if that game releases as a mess, or doesn't have like a good content roadmap, or, you know, any of the many live service problems we've talked about over the last few years. Like in Redfall, you can see a kind of glimmer of the old Arcane in some of the world design, or in Suicide Squad, there's hints of the Rocksteady we all know and love in certain set pieces. But with these games, their unique vision was sacrificed to chase a trend. When you try to please everyone, you can end up pleasing no one. In fact, it's much more likely than pleasing everyone. And it didn't have to be this way. Again, there are good live service games, even ones with solid single-player components, like take GTA Online. GTA 5 is still there, it's playable, and the modes are completely separate and don't interfere with each other. It's kind of a drag that Rockstar gave up on some pretty amazing sounding DLCs starring Trevor as a secret agent for the single-player game, and instead dedicated all their time to GTA Online, but the core game is still there, and it's still excellent. The same seems like it's going to be true for GTA 6. It seems like they're following that mode. Even if the single-player game turns out being a loss leader to get people in the door for GTA Online 2, or whatever they want to call it, the fact is, GTA 6 is going to be GTA 6. But all these devs had to go live service on their most recent games, and all to their ruin. Arcane Austin was closed. BioWare has been mostly silent. Other then releasing a few concept art compilations doubling as trailers since 2019, and they lost a lot of their key figures. We don't know what's going to happen to Rocksteady after the failure of Suicide Squad, but that game was specifically called out as a failure by Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's unlikely that the planned content for the game is going to all come out, and who knows where they're going to be in a year. Other studios have suffered too. Platinum's reputation was damaged after the abysmal Babylon's Fall. I just assume that there's some kind of contractual obligation with that travesty because it makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, Kamiya stopped working at Platinum, but that doesn't mean every single person with the sensibilities left. In fact, I'd wager there are a lot more people there that understand how to make games. What the hell got them involved in Babylon's Fall? Every time we bring that one up, I'm just beyond frustrated with it. But I'll say this, out of the primarily single-player studios that made a live service push, Naughty Dog is probably the one that got out unscathed because they did the sensible thing and just canned The Last of Us Factions 2. It still cost the studio years of wasted time that could have been better spent focusing on what they're good at, but at least they're not stuck supporting a game they have no ability to keep running for years on end. That's the real issue with live service games. They're very risky propositions. Even when they're being made by developers who know exactly what they're doing, there's a good chance the game will fail, not find an audience, or just burn up too much money. So what chance does a developer with no experience with these types of games have? Like, they're trying to get by on the goodwill from their previous games and their AAA developer status, but that's just not enough. If these devs had just stuck to what they're good at, they'd probably be turning a profit. Would it be all the profit? No. But again, there is a specter haunting the games industry. And when you can't get all the profit, it's just not good enough for some publishers and studio heads. Ultimately, the mindless pursuit of profits over rational business planning is the real problem here. And you could ask anyone but a studio head or one of these business executives running a publisher, anyone else, ask any other person. They'll tell you maybe we should have a plan. But for them, there is no plan. The live service game is basically like oil in them dar hills. We don't have a plan. We're just going to set a bunch of people loose with pickaxes and hope somebody comes back with oil or gold or diamonds or something. Whatever. It's whatever's worth money. Just bring it back. No, they should have a plan. And the plan should maybe involve using people's talents and skills that have been established to make things that people want. And again, I realize that it's easy to take a big old dump on live service games, and I will continue to do that. But it's not just live service games. The industry feels like it's in a free fall. But the thing is, it's not true everywhere. Over in Japan, Capcom has enjoyed its 7th straight year of record profits. And they've been putting out a solid mix of live service and single-player games. Nintendo doing the same thing by sticking to, what they know how to do. They're not throwing everything out the window because they see something shiny. That's exactly what all of these other publishers and developers are doing, though, when they're trying to make something that they just don't know how to do. It's a risky business to make games. There's always going to be backfires, even when you're rationally planning things, and the result is killing or damaging the reputation of these great studios that some of the best single-player games ever have come out of. Looking back on this whole thing, these studios would have been better off just going to the casino and putting the budgets of these games on black. They could have turned a profit. A lot of this was just short-term thinking and trend chasing. I wish I could say the industry is finally starting to learn its lesson after the latest high-profile service game failure, but no. After admitting the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was an utter failure, what was Warner Brothers Discovery's takeaway from the whole thing? To double down on live service games, of course. Even though their most popular game, their most profitable game, probably the biggest success they've had in years was, Hogwarts Legacy, an entirely single-player game. They made a crap ton of money off of that. And after a live service failure, they're like, single-player games, am I right? Make another live service game. If there's one thing you could count on in the games industry, it's that these big corporations will make dumb as hell decisions. That is the one bet you can count on. You don't need to put it on black. Put all your money on the big corporations making dumb as hell decisions. That's not random. It's gonna land there. If somebody gives you 30-1 odds on that, you take it because you are walking away with 30 times the money that you had prior. That's all I got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.